I want to get something out of the way. Superman is my all-time favorite superhero. Him and Green Lantern and the Justice League were the comics that I grew up with. They were the superhero cartoons I grew up with. I loved Superman much more than Batman. I love Batman, but I love Superman even more because I recognized something in him that a lot of other people do not seem to understand. And unfortunately, it's something Zack Snyder doesn't seem to understand. The idea that he's Clark Kent before he's Superman. It might be Krypton that makes him Superman, but it's Earth that makes him human. And that's what means more. Superman is the mask that Clark Kent wears, just as Bruce Wayne is the mask that Batman wears, because the tragic part is that Bruce Wayne died that night along with his parents in the alley not too far away from the movie theater in Crime Alley. And on that day, Batman was born. But Clark is different. His real life began when he was discovered by a kindly couple that took him in. Clark Kent is Superman. Superman's not Clark Kent. Zack Snyder doesn't seem to understand that. A lot of other people don't. And a lot of other people think that, oh, he's boring, he's got all these powers, he has underwear on the outside. Okay, first of all, have you actually looked at underwear? And that's not what underwear looks like. And second of all, a good writer takes what he's given and crafts a good story out of it. There are ways to do Superman right. Stories that show that he can't be everywhere at once. Or stories that push him to his limits and show why he's not willing to cross the line of killing. Stories that show he can be more than just a brainless brick that just punches people over and over. Stories that show him at his most human, or the dual nature that he's viewed at. How he can come off so much like a god and yet be the most human out of all the metahumans in the DC universe. Superman exemplifies the sort of philosophical idea of the DC heroes, at least in how they started out. Because Marvel's heroes were the kind that you looked up to, well, I mean, related to. They had issues, they dealt with prejudices, but DC's heroes, they were the ones that you looked up to. They were the ones you admired. They were the ones you wanted it to be like. And Superman, to me, best exemplified that. I love the guy a lot. So, even though I'd seen the bad reviews, I wanted to see Batman versus Superman. Because, well, it's Superman. And let's be honest, as more mainstream as comics are becoming, the movies are kind of like a generation's way of being introduced to a character. And it really, really depressed me that a Superman that killed is what a new generation would grow up with. So I thought, I had hoped that this new film would be better. And you know what? Here's the thing about the killing. If they had established in the film that Superman valued all life, that he never ever killed anybody who he fought against, that the no-killing rule was something he viewed as hard and fast and that he never broke. If they had established that, and then Zod pushed him into killing him, I would have been upset, but I would have been far less upset because I could understand it, because it shows that this one time he was forced to cross the line he had promised he'd never cross. It would have been terrible, but at least it would have established the fact that he'd been pushed over a line he viewed as sacred. And the idea that you have to kill someone to understand that you shouldn't kill someone is so stupid. Goyer is an idiot, okay? The writer was a completely stupid moron. But hey, new film, new Batman, I was willing to give it a shot. So, let me explain to you my sort of stream of consciousness thoughts as I was watching the film. Now, good news! It gets Batman's origin out of the way very quickly, but the bad news is we didn't need it there. Everybody knows it by now. It's pointless to include it. It's why the animated series with Kevin Conroy didn't include it. There's not that much improvement in the movie on color either. It's all still drab and dreary stuff. It's sad that the Superman films, the DC films, are less colorful than the Marvel films, especially when Marvel's heroes are more likely to kill, but we can forgive that because the films are fun and they're colorful. Because of that, because they're more essentially lighthearted, we can overlook some of the real flaws in those films, like the fact that, yes, the heroes in there do in fact sometimes kill. I don't like that, and in the comics it's much different, but I don't mind that they'll kill sometimes because the film overall is fun. It's colorful, it's much more lighthearted, it's more enjoyable. This does not come off as enjoyable. And of course, when we see Bruce's father dies, he says the word of his wife. The name of his wife, Martha. Martha. I know that's going to be important. I know it's going to be important. And of course, we come to the scene pretty much directly from The Dark Knight Returns, the comic by Frank Miller, in which Bruce falls into the cave, where the Batcave is, and he's surrounded by bats. They're everywhere. And in the film, he's actually lifted up into the air, out of the cave, by the bats. Lifted out of the cave by the bats. This had better be symbolism, because the idea that he was literally lifted out of a cave by bats is so stupid for a film that's trying to be realistic. And then, of course, we get to a title card. Metropolis. Mankind is introduced to Superman. Guess what? We don't ever see another title card like that. But to be fair, when the destruction of Metropolis is shown, it's given the gravitas and seriousness and horror we deserved to see before in Man of Steel. Here, it comes across as serious and meaningful. People scramble to run away. There's debris that's going flying everywhere. Bruce Wayne is barreling on through. His first instinct is to help his employees regardless of the consequences. I liked this. I liked it a lot. When he's driving his car and buildings are crashing on either side of him, it's all well done. It invokes obvious 9/11 references, sure, and that kind of made me cringe. I wasn't sure what to feel, but I felt the chills running through me. I felt horrified. I felt, this is how it should have been done the first time. And, it also kind of angers me, because I feel this is just like a blatant retcon to address the people that brought up the obvious destruction porn from the last film. Why didn't you do this the first time? We're moving on. Evidently, Zod's ship, General Zod, his ship is just lying in the Indian Ocean somewhere. I don't understand why. It's been, according to the title card, 18 months. Okay, why has the government not tried to cordon it off? This is dangerous alien technology. There should be black helicopters all around this shit. I'm sorry, I don't mean to swear. This film really aggravates me. And guess what's inside the ship, though? Kryptonite. Now they introduce kryptonite. They could have introduced it before, but oh, no. They're not going to introduce it before. They're going to introduce it now, because they need something to hurt Superman. And then Lois Lane is doing an interview with a warlord in the desert, and guess what? She gets turned into a damsel in distress. Not even the line, "I'm not a lady, I'm a journalist," could distract from that. And by the way, I looked this up when I got back from the film. That guy she's with, who's killed off immediately in the beginning of the film, is Jimmy Olsen. Zack Snyder, this is your idea of, we wanted to do something fun with him? That's your idea? You know what? And guess what? Superman, of course, rushes in to stop them. A bunch of guys that are very clearly not normal guys, they're mercenaries, shoot up the place as Superman basically flies the warlord out of the village to have a talk of sorts with him. And evidently, the government came down hard on the neighboring village that the warlord had taken over, and evidently, somehow they blamed Superman for the people that got shot in the warlord's compound. Yeah, somehow they're blaming him for people getting shot. Superman does not carry a gun. And why is it that he's being blamed for what happened to the nearby village? You know, I see this so often in fiction, that it is somehow a good person's fault when bad people do bad things. Oh no, we shouldn't blame the supervillain Nitro for blowing himself up and killing all those children in Stamford, Connecticut in the event comic Civil War. No, we should blame the superheroes that were trying to take him in and that he blew himself up in response to that. No, we shouldn't blame Zod or the Kryptonians that came down to Earth to try and destroy the Earth and get Superman. No, we should blame Superman for that. It's not a good guy's fault when a villain does bad things and the hero has to retaliate. That's like saying that if a criminal has a gun to someone's head and a cop shoots them in the hand or shoots them in the leg and cripples them or something like that to stop them, that it is somehow the cop's fault when that crook's friends try to kill the hostage. No! Nobody put a gun to these people's heads. Nobody put a gun to Lex Luthor's heads or to any of these supervillains' heads and told them to do evil crap. These guys cause so much harm to other people, yet somehow the idiots in the comic industry or just the industry of fiction think that other people should somehow be held more wrong for retaliating and maybe accidentally hurting people than the villains are for deliberately trying to hurt people. Are you listening? This is so stupid! Moving right along. Amy Adams naked in the bathtub. Because, you know, give me them big ass titties. To be fair though, when Clark gets into the tub with her and he begins kissing her, it almost is cute. And I kind of wish there'd been more of that. Because, honestly, Henry Cavill plays kind of second fiddle to Batman. And it also does a mood whiplash. Because the next scene is a Batman scene, and we find out that a crook who's evidently a child sex trafficker who's been like kidnapping children and forcing them to be sex workers and stuff, he's been tortured and branded with the bat symbol, and he's done it a bunch of times. Also, Jeremy Irons is Alfred. It looks like he's designed pretty much all of Batman's gadgets. I found him remarkably witty. I liked him. I liked how he was handled. But then of course, when Alfred tries to bring up the fact that Batfleck might be going too far, Affleck says, "We've always been criminals." Again, this is a direct line from The Dark Knight Returns. This is a Frank Miller line, and it's stupid. Superheroes are like superpowered deputized citizens. They act to enforce the law, not break it. Would you say that a cop who shoots a guy in the leg after he's running away from robbing a bank is breaking the law because he just committed assault? No. You'd praise him for not shooting the guy in the back of the head after you see him running away with a bag of money. it is so stupid, this idea that superheroes are somehow equivalent to vigilantes. No, they're not. They're really not. See, vigilantes kill. Vigilantes take the law into their own hands all the time. Superheroes do what normal people can't do. Normal people can't lift 10,000 people off a house in a flood. That normal firefighters couldn't go right into an inferno in 10 seconds to get a little girl out of it. And they couldn't do it in 5 minutes. Name a normal person who could set down a space shuttle that's about to crash into the Earth. Superheroes do what other people really can't do because those people don't have the power or the chance to. And a vigilante would never, ever work with the government or authorities, but people like the Justice League and Superman often do. They are often called upon for help with things governments can't normally do in comics. Hence, why they're not really vigilantes or the like. And I know what you're thinking. Aren't they beholden to no one? Well, what about their conscience? You're treating them less like people and more like this force that just does things. You're missing the forest for the trees. Yes, there should be some preventative measures. Yes, there should be some things in place just in case, like, Superman got hit with a purple ray and mind controlled or something like that. Yeah, there should be some preventative measures, or a government-controlled team of superpowered beings to act as a final wave of defense. That's fine. But that doesn't make people like Superman really that much of a threat, especially when you consider who they fight. Let me ask you this. If someone like Darkseid, Interplanetary Conqueror, is about to invade Earth with armies of flying demons, are you going to stand on ceremony and insist Superman can't act unilaterally, or are you just going to step back and go, okay, you do your thing, and let him punch Darkseid into the moon? I think we all know what the answer would be. We let him punch Darkseid into the moon. Just let these people do what they do. You want to have preventative measures? Fine. I can agree with that. But superheroes are not criminals. And Jesse Eisenberg is not a good Lex Luthor. He's too smarmy. He's too annoying. He acts like the unholy love child between the Joker, the Riddler, and Lex Luthor combined into a spoiled brat trust fund baby who has no motivation for why he does what he does whatsoever. Every time I saw him on screen, I wanted to punch him. And then we get to a scene where a guy who lost his legs in Metropolis, Affleck personally pulled debris off of him. Somehow he manages to climb onto a statue of Superman and is painting onto him. And with spray paint. Somehow he was able to get a good deal of it painted over before the cops tugged him down. How did he do that? It's been 18 months since he lost his legs. He has no legs. It would take a lot longer than that to build your upper body strength to do that stuff. And then, oh, by the way, about Lex Luthor, evidently he carries around a jar full of Jolly Ranchers. Why? Because quirks. Evidently, Zack Snyder is taking a page out of the book of M. Night Shyamalan and believes that quirks make a character. No, not really. They don't. Not. Then we cut to a scene where Clark Kent wants to write about the Batman because, well, he sees photographs that show crooks who are dead on slabs in the morgue with the bat symbol branded onto them. And Clark wants to do stories on the Batman who's blatantly, like, outright torturing and branding and doing horrible things to these criminals. And evidently, Perry White is just fine with stories against Superman, but doesn't want to criticize Batman when he's doing even worse stuff against crooks. I just don't get this. And I don't get why Lex Luthor hates Superman. At least Bruce Wayne lost employees. He was there in Metropolis. I don't understand his motivation. And I also don't understand how he could have the gall, the audacity, to comment on Superman being above the law when he is branding people and killing them! You hypocritical son of a bitch! Shut your face! God. There is nothing worse I hate than a hypocrite in stories like this. You don't get to claim any kind of moral high ground about someone acting above the law when you are torturing people! And then Lex Luthor shows up and does that line. Oh, you should not pick a fight with this man. So obvious. Moving right along. Then we get one of the few bright spots of light in this film. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman gets the better of Batman. Gal Gadot did a good job. A very good job. I really like her. Truth be told, I think for the most part, except for Jesse Eisenberg. Sorry, I meant to say Jesse Eisenberg. I think everybody did a very good job with what they had, but what they were given wasn't very good. They can't save the writing, and they can't save the directing. So, then we get to the next scene, a montage, Superman saving people. Which is cut to right after he sees a scene of a factory that's on fire, and he finds out a little girl is gonna die. He immediately, of course, barrels out of there to save her, and he's being bowed at in the middle of a Day of the Dead ceremony. They want him to touch them. Obvious Jesus symbolism. Obvious. And yet, even after we see him saving people over and over, the ingratitude of the people on the talk shows is staggering. I've discussed this already I'm not going to go over this again. I was practically screaming as I watched this unfold. And Perry White. Once again, Clark Kent wants to do a story on the Batman. And his argument boils down to, stop trying to report on what Batman's doing, because it's modern times and nobody cares about the moral thing. Who cares if he's breaking the law? Nobody cares. Nobody cares, because nobody reads newspapers anymore. This is not what the media is about. Lawrence Fishburne, did you even... you didn't have any objections to that? God! He's wasted. They wasted him. Also, by the way, I have to bring up something. Wonder Woman kind of has an accent. It sounds a little bit off, but otherwise, I like how she came out. And then we cut to a scene where Bruce is decrypting something, flash drive, essentially, that was designed to steal information from LexCorp. And evidently, it just switches into a desert scene pretty much right out of nowhere. It's not even set up. Like, we see him falling asleep waiting for the decryption. And it shows Batman, basically in a Mad Max type scenario, and he has a gun. And he's shooting people left and right. And it's evil Superman. They're all bowing to him. Superman's about to torture him. Rips off the cowl, yada, yada, yada. Bruce wakes up, and then there's a vision. The Flash shows up. And he says, you were right about him, or you were always right about him, something like that. And Lois is the key. So he can name Lois, but he couldn't name him. Who is him? And then there's a fight between Batman and Superman, with Superman sort of stepping in because he thinks that Batman is just plain going too far. Batman loses in like 15 seconds. All he can do is just stand up in his car and basically just look at Superman, who pretty much creamed him. He realized he has no chance. And Superman says, next time they put your signal in the sky, don't answer it. The bat is dead. And then, of course, the line, tell me, do you bleed? You will. He's trying to imitate the Bale growl. Where is it? Where's the trigger? Anyway, then we get a scene with Superman with Clark talking to his mom, and he feels so stressed out and depressed, and he's like, I do so much, and I just don't understand why they don't understand me. Why don't they see the good I'm trying to do? And she says, you don't owe this world a thing. Yeah, she says you can be their hero, be their savior, or be none of it. You don't owe this world a thing. Evidently, the writers don't believe that with great power comes great responsibility. You know, the whole point is that because Superman has power, he has a moral obligation to use it for good. Moving right along, Lois Lane has figured out that Lex was behind her kidnapping earlier in the film, and Superman shows up for a Senate hearing. And the next scene involves a jar of Lex Luthor's pee that has somehow been snuck into this Capitol building and labeled Granny's Sweet Tea because the senator that called Superman here told Lex to his face she wasn't going to let him weaponize the kryptonite. She wasn't going to let him take any of the material from Zod's ship into the USA, and she didn't care what he did. He could piss in a jar and call it Granny's Sweet Tea. She's not doing what he wants. So he somehow snuck a jar of his own pee into the Capitol building and somehow got that guy that has no legs that defaced Superman statue. Somehow he got him wired with an explosive that goes off and kills everyone but Superman. And all I could think is, this is stupid. In a post 9/11 world, in a post Metropolis world, a guy would be checked out for a bomb, especially if he was going into the Capitol building. This is stupid. And after he's in that explosion, Superman doesn't emote at all. He just looks around. He doesn't fall to his knees. He doesn't cover his face. There's no sign that this bothers him at all. The whole film is dreary and dour and depressing and God. Oh, and you might be wondering how the film integrates the Dawn of Justice bit. Well, Wonder Woman looking over an email, seeing brief videos that set up the other Justice League members like Aquaman and Cyborg and the Flash. That's it. It is so lame. There is no theatricality to it. It's not interesting. It's so pathetic. And then the second fight, the biggest fight between Batman and Superman. Because Superman is being forced to fight Batman because somehow Lex Luthor has kidnapped his mother, and if he doesn't do what he says, he's going to kill her. Even so, Superman tries to ask Batman for help. He tries to say that Lex has kidnapped his mom, but Batman doesn't let him. He's completely decked out in a super suit. He has mines. He has guns. He's got kryptonite gas. It's not even really a fight. It's a bludgeoning. Superman is trying to hold back, and Batman is just creaming him. It's total Frank Miller crap. I hated how Frank Miller always treated Superman. He makes Superman and all other heroes look bad to make Batman look good. That's the sign of a bad writer. And then, of course, a spear, a kryptonite spear. Batman is about to kill Superman, and Superman essentially says, "Find him, save Martha." Yeah, Martha. It ties in, because guess what? His mom is also named Martha, just like Batman's. And then Lois runs in and says, after Batman's like, "Why'd you say that name?" And she's like, "It's his mother!" And immediately Batman is like, oh, he's just a normal person. And he decides Martha's not going to die tonight. It was such an obvious setup. It's not nearly as dramatic as Snyder seems to think it is. And evidently Lois picks up the kryptonite spear and just tosses it into some water instead of doing the smart thing and holding on to it just in case. And then we see Batman just mowing down criminals left and right, outright slaughtering them. They're dead, okay? They are freaking dead. And then they bring in Doomsday. Somehow, Lex has made the body of Zod into Doomsday. DC is, I hate to use this terminology, but they're blowing their load too quickly. First of all, Doomsday looks ugly. And yeah, I didn't need to see his butt shots. But second of all, you can't just include the death of Superman shoved into this. You just can't. It's too soon. You gotta set this stuff up. And then, so Superman and Doomsday are fighting. Superman is still so weak because of everything Batman did earlier. The government tries to launch a nuke at the two when they're in the air, and somehow, evidently, every time Doomsday is struck, he gets more and more powerful. I think that was kind of true in the comics. I can't remember exactly, but then, good news. Wonder Woman shows up. I don't think she's as muscular as I would have liked, but she looks very nice. She looks the part. It actually felt, when I saw her fighting, when I saw her using the wristbands and the shield and the sword, my heart soared. I was like, yes, this is what I wanted to see. Okay, yeah, Batman has a gun, a kryptonite gun, and he doesn't do that much in the fight against Doomsday, but I wanted to see this kind of fight with Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman together fighting. It was good. Well choreographed. Just the right kind of intensity. I liked it. But then I realized what they were going to do when I saw Lois going to get the kryptonite spear. Yep, Superman was going to fall on the spear. He was going to do self-sacrifice. He is Jesus. He is dying for our sins. They kill off Superman. In the second film he shows up in, they kill off Superman. And guess what happens in the scene immediately after we see Lois and Wonder Woman and Batman mourning over the dead body of Superman? Alexander Luthor's head being shaved. Ha! Ha! I hate this. I hate this movie. And of course, we see at the funeral that Clark was going to ask Lois to marry him. There was barely any relationship development between the two in this film. And the seriousness of the funeral is undercut by bagpipes. And then, when Bruce Wayne and Wonder Woman, Diana, are talking together, and Wonder Woman is talking about why she didn't bother to, how she had been around in World War I, but wasn't anymore, how she hid herself away. And she says, and I'm quoting here, "Man made a world where standing together is impossible." And I just about jumped up and screamed F you at the screen. Lady, you ran away from your responsibilities. And we normal people don't all live on a utopian island like your species does. And then of course, the scene where Luthor is in prison and Batman comes to visit him, and he's got the brand, and it looks like he's going to brand Luthor. And I was like, yes, finally, he's going to get what he deserves. But guess what? He doesn't even punch Luthor. All Luthor does is rant about how the bell has been rung, it can't be unrung, something's coming, yada, yada, yada. And all it does is just leave him in a cell. He doesn't even get a brand. He pretty much gets off scot-free for causing the death of Superman. He barely gets anything. And then, at the end of the film, close-up of the coffin, after Lois has sprinkled some dirt onto it, the dirt levitates off slightly. Somehow he's alive. Somehow. So, that was it. That was Batman versus Superman. There were bits of it I loved, but I hated it far more than I loved it. It angered me. It frustrated me. I should never feel this way about a film starring my favorite superhero. I don't think I can honestly recommend it. So, Zack Snyder, up your ass with mobile gas!